colleagues for this rollback of the 5% budget?
Well, let me say that I was listening to Mr. Larson's concerns. I asked the question to the FBI, to the Capitol Police, and to law enforcement that spoke to the caucus this morning. So much of this for me is a matter of definition. Depending upon how we want to define what has occurred, will determine our response. If this is a lunatic, then this is an isolated incident. If this is an act of domestic terror, and just a few days before this incident, Ms. Giffords swore to uphold the same Constitution that members of the FBI, that members of the Capitol Hill Police, and that members of Congress swore to uphold against enemies, foreign and domestic. What would our response be if this were a foreign national who took these matters into their own hand and tried to make a political statement? Would the Capitol Hill Police response, would the institutional response of this Congress be different than the present response that we're receiving with respect to security measures? I suspect if this were that level of an event, our response would be to provide our district staffs with exactly that which they need. The kind of security that we have carefully since 9/11 looked at for the capital of the United States. We've created a fortress up here with a myriad of tunnels to allow members of Congress to conduct their business and to conduct their activities. The other question is, what is the impact and the consequences of free speech for members of Congress, particularly for our caucus that is now in the political minority? That is, many of us want to go to the floor and make our points. And after all, members of Congress have spent millions of dollars on name recognition to get to Congress. And so, by definition, the anxiety of the American people is being expressed in the direction of their member of Congress. Unemployment, despondent Americans, people who are frustrated, who want to take their government back, see members of Congress as targets in that environment. What I can say is since 9/11, we have not treated our district staffs the same way we have treated this Capitol. We have not provided our district staffs, and I recognize that there are logistical problems associated with that. So part of my proposal will recognize that there are as many security concerns as there are members of Congress. 435 different opinions about what constitutes security in their districts. Members have to have some flexibility in making that determination. For those who think this is some kind of money grab being offered by Congressman Jackson, an opportunity to increase the MRA, it's important, I think, for members of the media to share with our constituents, this isn't our personal money. We return monies that are not used for security purposes and others members' representation allowance purposes back to the Treasury at the end of the congressional cycle. One member of Congress, for example, yesterday decided, based upon where their district office is located, to move their offices into a safer neighborhood. Well, I represent despondent, poor, and unemployed people, and I've chosen not to move my office out of those neighborhoods. And so the security concerns for those who've made the judgment to move to a safer neighborhood or to a safer location could include more rent. The member's representation allowance needs to reflect that. For those of us who've chosen to stay, our staffs in low-income areas and areas where there are despondent and depressed Americans who have not benefited from the economic recovery, the frustration continues. And the anxiety about services that they can provide continue. And so I have argued for a reversal of the vote by Democrats and Republicans last week as one of the no votes who voted no against cutting the MRA, that during these times of economic withdrawal and contraction, that the American Congress should be engaging its constituents and doing everything that it can for its constituents, not reducing the amount of service that we can provide by 5%. That needs to be fixed from my perspective. In addition to that, $150,000 to provide cameras, to provide surveillance, to provide locks, to reimburse local law enforcement if necessary if they are attending local events so that we are not passing an unfunded mandate on to local law enforcement as a result of covering members of Congress's event is not an unreasonable addition for the institution of Congress. And I want to add one final point. In the final analysis, this may include an expansion not only of the responsibilities of the Capitol Hill Police, which provide an extraordinary service here in Washington, but it may require language that reforms the way in which, from my perspective, the United States Marshal Service conducts its business. That is, we know that it secures federal judges and the federal courts. It may require expansion of the role of the United States Marshal Service accordingly with coordination from our schedules to cover certain kinds of public events where members of Congress make a judgment that there is a need for protective service. That